When I began my teaching career, fresh out of graduate school, I was really impressed with myself. I had read all these books, taken great notes, studied academic journals. I had a head full of facts and ideas and theories, and I couldn't wait to be a teacher so I could send all that knowledge upon my students. And that worked really well for a little while. And then the internet happened. By lecturing on topics that were readily available on YouTube and Wikipedia, how was I preparing my students? What was I offering them? How was I preparing my students for a world full of careers that hadn't been invented yet? How was I preparing my students for a world where information was ubiquitous and cheap, but innovation was scarce and in high demand? Let me explain what I mean. In 2010, IBM conducted a survey of 1,500 CEOs, and they asked these people, what is the single most important quality in navigating our increasingly complex world? And above rigor, above management discipline, above integrity, and above vision, they said that the single most important quality is creativity. But what do we do in the schools? What is the gold standard? What are the schools that are given all the federal funding? Which teachers are the ones who are glorified in the Los Angeles Times? What students are the ones who are told that they are the most successful? The ones who do well on these. Now, I've got nothing wrong with these. In fact, I think that there's a very strong place to have these kinds of tests in the schools. They measure an important element of the school life. They measure a student's ability to solve complex problems using pre-established formulas. And we need people who know how to do that. We need people who know how to solve geometric problems using the Pythagorean theorem. We need students who know that force equals mass times acceleration. We need people out there who know which "there" to use in a sentence. Facebook friends, I'm talking to you. These skills are really important, but if the most important quality we need to succeed in our world is creativity, then we spend too much emphasis in the schools on these. And we need to spend more time teaching and motivating creativity. But motivating creativity is a really difficult thing to do. Let me tell you one way not to motivate creativity. Johnny, if you are extra creative on this project, I'll give you an A. But if you're not so creative, D+ for effort. These sorts of grades, these rewards and punishments, carrots and sticks, these extrinsic motivators not only do nothing in motivating creativity, they in fact undermine it. There's a great book out there called Drive by Daniel Pink, and he outlines this in great detail. And he argues that there are three elements that inspire motivation and creativity. And this book is directed towards business managers. And he recognizes that we need more people in business that are innovative and creative. And he said that there are three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose establish innovative thinking and creativity. Autonomy, give people more freedom in what they learn and what they work and what they do and how they learn it. Mastery, show people that the work that they're doing, they're getting incrementally better at the skills that they're developing while they're working. And purpose, show them that they're doing something outside of the office and they're helping other people. And at the end of the book, he says, oh yeah, teachers, you might want to think about this as well. He talks about Google, and Google gets this. What they do is they offer their employees, their engineers, perhaps the most valuable people out there as far as salaries go. They give their employees 20% of their time to work on any project that they want to. How many of you have heard of Gmail? Yes. That's a 20% time project. It's just some guy said, I want email to be better, and so we invented Gmail. So I finished this book, and Dan Pink says, teachers, you might want to think about this. And then right after I finished it, I got an invitation to go out to a Google campus and see this in action. And I went back to my school, and I looked around, and I said, we've got a pretty cool school. Maybe they'll let me do this. So I started the 20% project. And several other teachers around the world are also adopting this as well. And at the beginning of the year, I told my students, I will give you 1 day a week to pursue some project of your choice. And some students heard me say this, and immediately they said, oh, great, I know exactly what I want to do. I write a novel. I've always wanted to write a novel. Perfect. Can I write a novel? Yes, you can write a novel. Other students always said, I wanted to learn how to create a stop-motion animation. Yes, run with that. I want to create a blog for teenagers that teaches them how to raise chickens. Awesome, do that. But the vast majority of my students have never been told or asked what they want to learn or what they want to work on. And so they don't know what to do. So we have this brainstorming session at the beginning of the year. And I have students go up to the whiteboards, and I say, all right, you can't come up with any good ideas? Come up with some bad ideas. And I call it the bad idea factory. I want you to come up with the worst ideas that you can think of. And I didn't invent this idea. It came from a friend of mine from the UK. His name's Ewan McIntosh. And he has this theory that whenever we're trying to be innovative and come up with new and novel ideas, we have this thing in our brain, and it's called an editor. And whenever it comes up with an idea that's a little different, the editor says, that idea sucks. But when you tell that editor, I don't care, we're trying to come up with ideas that suck, then it shuts them up. And then they come up with these really bad ideas. Like, we want to take pictures of our feet. Bad idea. Or we want to create an invasive super species and send it out into the Monterey Bay. Mark, bad idea, right? Or we want to make a movie about grass growing. This is a horrible idea. Excellent, good job, you did it. But from these bad ideas came some really amazing ideas. I had a student who wanted to learn what it was like to experience to be deaf for a week and share that experience with her friends. And so she learned how to sign, and she wore these earphones, and she experienced it. Another group of students wanted to melt metal. They wanted to create a foundry. And I said, that sounds really dangerous and fun. Let's go find somebody who knows how to do that. And then another group of students said that I want to go and teach senior citizens how to use technology more effectively. Now, these were the good ideas, but there were also bad ideas that when we looked at them a little more closely, we thought, oh, maybe those are good ideas. For example, someone suggested that we should watch TV for 72 straight hours and document the results. Yeah, that might be interesting. Or experience what it's like to be homeless for a week. Let's get your parents' permission for that first. I want to make a movie about grass growing. Not in real time. Okay, that's a little more interesting. So I have my students create a formal proposal, and they present it to the class, and they talk about what they plan on doing, what their audience is going to be, what sort of resources they're going to need. They create a blog. They get to work, and they start writing every week about that process. So they have a long documentation of everything that they have done. And in my classroom, I put up a poster that I stole with a message that I stole from Facebook. And it reads, done is better than perfect. Now, I don't want to see this poster on the wall of the parachute packing factory. And in fact, there are lots of moments in my class where I want my students to pursue perfection. And I'm thinking grammar, I'm thinking there, and there. But for projects like this that require motivation and creativity, I've found that the pursuit for perfection almost always leads to incompletion. I tell my students that failure is an option, but failure to deliver is not. So a lot of students and parents come to me reasonably and they say, well, how are you going to grade this thing? And again, I tell them, I try to de-emphasize the grades. I say, the grades, they kind of undermine the whole thing, so we're trying not to focus on that. But there are some elements that I do grade them on, like the blog. They just got to keep up with the blog and the proposal, and there's this end of the year thing that they get graded on. But I still get lots and lots of skeptics. For example, I get someone who might say, yeah, that sounds really great, Kevin, but Johnny needs to learn how to write. Well, we do that in 80% of the class, but here's the real secret. The 20% project, it's a writing project. The difference between this project, or the writing that they're doing for this project, and the writing they might have done had I not offered this project, is that this time, they're writing for a purpose. They're writing about something they're passionate about, and they're writing for people other than their English teacher. They're writing for a real audience. They're writing for newspaper editors. They're writing for customers. They're writing for the marketplace of ideas. And then I get more skeptics. I've got a very close colleague who says, yeah, Kevin, I tried this, a 20% project, and it was a miserable failure because my students didn't know how to handle this kind of freedom, and they just floundered. And they were used to a teacher telling them, you need to learn this is how we're going to learn it, and this is how I'm going to grade you on it. And he's right. Students really struggle with this, and I've seen it happen. And I think that's why we need to do this a little more often. And we need to offer them structure, but we also need to give them autonomy. Let's just start with a little bit. I have other people say, well, what about standards? Well, I'm at a school where I'm not subject to all the state standards, but I have looked at the Common Core, and the work that we're doing here in the 20% project fits many of those standards in the Common Core, and we're really excited about those. So at the end of the year, I have all of my students do this. They stand up in front of their peers and other community members of the school, and they deliver their own TED-style talk about their 20% project. I ask them to give me the best 5 minutes of your life. And here's an example from last year.
We get 1 hour every week to ourselves to work on a project that we want to do.
I'm sure most of us were pretty skeptical.
That's awesome.
My computer, which runs on Linux, decided it didn't want to run this free animation program because who uses Linux?
Profit that would go back to the school and for financial aid.
I got an idea of what it's like out there in the real world.
We also put a lot of time into measuring the amount of materials we would need.
I could do a stop motion about Macbeth using fast food products, Big Mac, Dunkin' of donuts.
I, on the other hand, am completely satisfied with how my project turned out, and I attribute that to the fact that I didn't really want to do it.
What could I do? I thought to myself. And then it hit me.
How much parallel compression is too much parallel compression?
It came to me. I can write a play.
But it gave me the tools necessary to create other video projects, which I used much more than I expected.
And I thought it was going to be easy as well pushing this.
Proud enough that it sent me into a tailspin of recording, screaming, and repeating.
Sadly, it wasn't.
Create a student-based art show to encourage the public to support their local student artists.
Even though I did not succeed in designing a car, I still learned a lot from this project.
This time was going to be different.
But then I had an inspiration.
Messing up wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Reality decides to throw a brick straight into your face.
For my project, I decided to create a cookbook. Memories die with their owners. And for my 20% project, I wanted to change that.
And because I kind of, not completely, but kind of, failed my 20% project.
The full-featured guide for using Source SDK.
The graph on the left represents how much it would cost to make them.
And I hope she'll give you roses at your door.
To me, this was a stepping stone, and this was to achieve a purpose that far greater than I could have imagined.
All in all, our 20% project was a huge success, and that's because we chose something that was inspiring and important to us. Thank you.
That last student is one of our student reporters right here. Students in the 10th grade today are going to turn 30 in the year 2028. And we have no idea what that world's going to look like, except we know a few things. It's going to be a lot more ambiguous than it has been in the past. Students are going to have to solve problems with no clear answers. We don't know. But I'm not content to just prepare students for an ambiguous world. I want them to create their world. We should start now. Thank you.